Start the countdown. Go with the music, Ron.
Pay attention, now welcome to America. Stay in your vicinity, don't step into my area. Keep it cool, don't let them see no fear. Play your cards right and you may see another year, yeah. Now that's a stretch, cause every day I pray that I make it to my family.
That's crazy. It's a segment today. We're meeting with some colleagues today of mine all over the city of Hampton Roads, Hampton, Richmond, and Newport News. We're excited about talking about the year in review. I want to give a shout out to my pastor, Willard Maxwell, who allowed me and you guys to come together to have this dialogue, this conversation about the year 2020 and what year 2020, how year 2020 has impacted not only our lives, not only what we do business-wise, ministry, and young people that we serve. And so that's what today is, very much of a great dialogue, great roundtable discussion. I'll be your moderator. I'm the youth pastor here at New Beech Grove. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And so what we're going to do, we're going to introduce ourselves and go around the room. Again, thank y'all again for tuning in. Y'all, these are my friends, and they're going to introduce themselves. We're going to start to my left and start.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris Cox. I am the youth and young adult pastor at C3 Hampton in Hampton, Virginia. I'm glad to be with you guys tonight.
My name is Trevor Fisher. I'm the apprenticing student pastor at Freedom Life Church in Hampton as well.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Alvin Hamilton. I'm the student pastor at the Life Church RVA.
Hey everyone, my name is Scotty Johnson. I am the youth pastor elect at Refuge Nation Church in Newport News, Virginia.
What's up, everybody? Hey, thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Alex. I'm the Generations Pastor at Emmaus Church in Hampton, Virginia.
Hello, I am Greg Garrett. Hope everybody's doing okay. I am with Garrett Realty Partners and founder of an organization called Orphan Helpers.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tiffany Boyle, the Commissioner of the Revenue for the City of Newport News and also the Newport News NAACP Youth Committee Chair.
Well, again, thank you guys for joining me today for this segment. And so we're going to kind of get right into it. And so to be honest with you, 2020 has been crazy. 2020 has been, to my imagination, nothing that I ever thought would take place. And so for some of us, when January 1 rolled around, we had all these plans and we had all these visions that what God was doing. We didn't have church services, the year 2020, perfect vision. And and so here we are in June. And so today we're going to start with, I have a video from a young boy, but we want to talk about COVID-19. We want to talk about how coronavirus kind of hit us, some of us unexpected, but we know that we learned about it before it got over here, but for some apparent reason, somebody or some people didn't take it very seriously. And so here we are, COVID-19. So we go ahead and run that video, please.
So some ways that COVID-19 affected me. At first, I was employed at the Boys and Girls Club, but on March 19th is the day that they did the nationwide shutdown. So I was out of a job at that time. Luckily, I was able to get another job, but things just weren't the way that it was supposed to be. Like, I was working night shift, so it was the fear of cops pulling me over thinking that I wasn't following the stay-at-home orders and stuff like that. And everything was closed, so there's really nothing to do but either go to work or just stay at home. So that's really how it affected me. It affected my social life, it affected my work environment and what I needed to do to keep on getting paid, and it pretty much affected my schedule throughout the rest of the pandemic.
So y'all, that was one of my college students, Dwayne Canyon, and we talked about what COVID and how that impacted him. And one of the biggest things he talked about was it really hurt his money, hurt his pocket. But the biggest thing about that was he was afraid of going to work because of the stay-at-home order. Maybe he was going to get pulled over on his way to work. And so these are some of the things he had to kind of flush through. And so as a youth pastor, that's one of the things having to talk to him about And she's like, man, that's tough to kind of work through, and just been praying. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about how COVID-19 impacted you. How did it change how did you move when it comes to virtual programming, and then how did it change when it comes to your youth ministry? I want to start with Alvin. Can you help us with that?
Absolutely. So I think for me, I have an interesting story because I just came into full-time ministry on May 1st. And so for the last year or so, I knew I wanted to do youth ministry. And then the moment I step into it, it's like everything changed.
Right.
So everything I thought I wanted to do, I no longer could do. I really had to redefine what youth ministry looks like. Speaking on the job portion, it's so funny. When COVID hit, all my high school students went and got jobs. And was like, oh, we can't come to youth group Zoom anymore. We can't get on Instagram Live. Got to go to work. So I was like, wow, just an interesting dynamic of everything is shut down, yet students are really still less available with jobs and with school.
Alex, can you what your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're part of a newly planted church. So we took our time kind of with youth ministry getting started, and then 3 months into launching our youth ministry, we had COVID hit. So, man, kind of the same scenario, and we found it difficult to connect with our students online because school went directly online. So if you spend all day on school, they don't want to spend all day at night, with youth ministry and different things. So we had to get really strategic about using Instagram, using Facebook, dropping stuff off at their house, keeping social distance, that kind of thing, and just trying to keep hope to our students. So that's what we did.
And like you said, one of the biggest changes was our young people having to go home. If we talk about it, having to do work from home, school. And you talk about some stressed out students, man. I'm telling you, it was one of the hardest transitions for, and if my son, love my son, but he doesn't adapt well to change, and this kind of threw him off. So Tiffany, can you help us with that? Can you help us with your experience when it comes to serving the youth in NAACP?
So a lot like Alvin, that the Newport News NAACP Youth was just getting started. I think we had 2 meetings in January and February, and then it had to stop. So we really only had maybe about 6 or 7 members that were actually starting to come, and we were growing. So we had to figure out what we were going to do virtually, how we were going to get more members, which is really difficult. So the students did come up with doing virtual, like Tutor Tuesdays and house party game nights, and we even watched a Netflix movie. So things like that, we just switched to virtual, but it really has kind of ceased the growth of the youth membership. So we're hoping that we can eventually get back to coming to meetings and really doing some outside activity.
Chris, how about you?
My students, for the most part, they compartmentalize a lot.
Right.
So, and basically what I mean by that is they have a specific space for specific things.
Right.
And so having everything come to one consolidated space, I can see has been a struggle for them. It's something that I was pushing to try to change even before COVID, because I want them to be able to engage and encounter God at home. But really, they only turn that on when they're at church. They only turn school on when they're at school, and then they turn video games on when I'm at home. So trying to have to navigate through all of that, school, church, and fun life and family life all in the same environment has been a challenge, but we are seeing that through just connecting with them one-on-one and really having some conversations with them and showing them how to navigate those waters, it's been helping now.
So as we were dealing with COVID, and COVID really became a pandemic, and then we saw death toll rise so crazy in America, it really had to, I don't know about you, start getting questions from my young people, like, what is God doing? Like, I know I'm probably not the only one that kind of had to deal with that piece. And so I had to tell them, I don't even know. Just to be honest, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's okay to tell somebody, I don't know. Let's see how, sometimes let's play it out. And so those questions, how did you filter those questions with your young people, or even with customers, or even with anything that they wanted to know what's really going on? And as much as you preach and much as you teach how God is, how difficult was this for you in this season? Help us with that, Dr. Scotty.
Well, with me working in the healthcare field, I I kind of see both ends of what's going on. So as far as, the spiritual side and working with the youth, I try to stay away so much. I try to teach them to abide by the laws of the land. I think that's the main thing, is to not deflect, don't, rebuttal, anything like that. Abide by the laws of the land. And so, as far as COVID, it's doing what it's doing. You know what I'm saying? It's affected me from a distance and what I see, but, we as people and the youth, and as, civilians, people that come into the pharmacy, abide by the laws of the land, stay safe, and do what you got to do. That's really all I can say about that.
How about you, Trevor?
Yeah, I would say part of it for me was you kind of had, as it went along, you had two groups of people, right? You had people who were close to it. They were experiencing COVID-19, and somebody they knew was in the hospital with COVID-19. And you have people who, I haven't seen it. I haven't experienced it. And the word that really came up, there's two words that came up in the midst of this. One was empathy, and the other was attunement. And it's like these words of feeling what somebody else is going through when you're not going through it, and really having to lean into that for our students, which is tough, right? They're the middle school and high school students,
right,
who that's not their first reaction.
Right.
And so having to lead them through that even now, we don't know.
We don't know.
We have no idea what COVID-19 is doing.
Right.
Is it gone? Numbers are decreasing.
Yeah, right.
We don't know.
Right.
But leading through the unknown, I think, has been a really, the word God gave me was look up. Right. And so it's a time I've had to look up.
Right.
Look around, see things around me, and just lead that way.
Right.
Not from trying to dig deep and figure out what I'm going to do about it.
Right.
Just had to look up and lean on God. So that's really what I've been leading my students through.
Good. Great. So we want to come to you, and I know you, big businessman. How did it affect that part of your business, and as you also are a valuable asset to young people?
In the business world, it really did not have extreme real effect. We came up with multiple protocols very quickly. We reacted very quickly. I reached out to other business owners, and I was able to get gloves and masks issued to our people and their families. So we were in a good position to pivot quickly and do things to protect our clients. We really said, we came out in the beginning and said we're going to do everything as safe as we can possibly do it.
Right.
But at the same time, we weren't going to lay off anybody. There was going to be enough economic disaster. We weren't going to lay off our own people.
Wow.
And then the third thing was, there are people that need to buy, sell, and rent houses. I mean, we've got people that are in hotel rooms. We've got people that cannot wait.
Yeah.
The pandemic doesn't mean if their stuff's in a moving truck that they can just stay in the moving truck and stay in hotels for the next 6 months or indefinitely.
Right.
So we're going to help the people that need to be helped. And then the fourth thing was, let's try to break even. Right? I mean, this is our season of that we prosper during the spring and summer, and it subsidizes us when we're losing in the winter. But let's try to break even. And what ended up happening is the blessing that's kind of crazy is that we ended up setting records in sales.
Wow.
In April, and then we beat it in May.
Wow.
Being in the business 36 years, and we ended
Wow.
up breaking records. No intention to break records. Not even a thought process in the back of our mind. It wasn't priority 57. It was not on the list.
Right.
But it happened.
Right.
And when we were just trying to do the right thing by not letting people go.
And so that's crazy, right? And so one of the biggest things that I've learned, it was so easy for an individual to lose focus in 2020, especially pandemic, especially being isolated, especially being at home, and not being able to do your regular scheduled activities. And I always say, and I tell my young people, Jesus came to shake some things up. And to be honest with you, man, some things got shaken up in this season. And so even for me, I got to the point where I lost focus. And just to being transparent, I lost focus, not thinking I did, but I can get to a point when I was like, hold on, I lost focus. So I had to re-examine. And so as I re-examined myself and tried to get realigned with what God was saying, the word I got, and was one of the words he gave me in 2020, was intentional.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by being intentional of staying focused, intentional of not falling to what you see, because the enemy wants us to get distracted so we won't help build the kingdom here on earth.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that helped me, and that helped me when you said that, because a lot of it was just because the earth stopped moving, God wasn't stopped. God didn't stop moving. And so we would quickly, some of us quickly got, again, just speaking me, got real off focus and thought the world was going to end, but God was still blessing. I seen people walk into homes. I seen people get accepted to schools. I seen people, although 2020 came, folks still walked across grasses and graduated. It might not have been a stage. They might have pulled up in the car, but they got their diploma. And so, you know, God was still, and that was one of my ploys to young people. Do not lose focus. Still plan. You still have goals in front of you. And so even when COVID comes, y'all, then as COVID came, Kobe Bryant dies. Right? And so I wasn't, you know, Kobe Bryant wasn't, and I'm telling about to tell my age a little bit. So Kobe Bryant, I'm Michael Jordan. I'm a Michael Jordan fan. And so, you know, I didn't have, so you want to be like Mike, you know what I'm saying? The Gatorade commercial. But then Kobe came, everybody shooting the basket. Kobe, you know, and so that for real, when he passed away in the crash, I remember where I was, but then also I remember my youth because that's what they knew. So, Alvin, when that happened, tell me your experience when it came to your young people.
Yes, I think for my youth group, it wasn't the fact that he died.
Right.
It was the traumatic way in
Why
which
he passed
died.
away. Right.
And it made it a little bit more tangible in the sense that could have been anybody. Like, that was somebody's father, somebody's husband. That was like the world's superhero.
Yes.
And if it happened to somebody of that stature, it could happen to any of us. And it's just so crazy how life is so precious. And sometimes we think that famous people or celebrities are invincible. And I think we learned through Kobe and so many others that they're not. And that we have to really value their lives as well as the lives of our family and friends.
Trevor?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a huge part of it, like the tragedy. And then learning about the other 8 people in the helicopter. Like, Kobe was the first one to come out. Then you learn his daughter was in there. Like, I think, and that was kind of a thing as well when nobody knew, right? It was possible his whole family was in the helicopter. Like, there was a whole lot of stories coming out on Facebook and different stories. But I think for me, I grew up with Kobe, and to be honest, I didn't like him as a player. I wasn't a big Kobe
I couldn't
fan.
stand Kobe, man. That was not one of my favorite players at all. But he was good.
He was good.
He was so good.
But man, I was so excited because some of the stuff he was doing after his career.
Yeah, that was
Like
it.
some of the
Right.
entrepreneurial stuff
Right.
that he was doing,
Definitely.
writing children's books. Like, he was really pursuing things after his career that I was really excited about. And I'm huge into sports, so I was keeping up with him and seeing some of the stuff he's doing in the business world. He was really changing the landscape.
Yes, he
That's
was.
one of the things I have against Michael Jordan. Like, you know, he followed the landscape of Larry Bird going into basketball. I'm gonna keep with basketball, and you see guys like Kobe Bryant who are pursuing children. Like, that's so incredible, the impact he was making. And to end like that was traumatic. It really was.
Yeah, and that was another question that came, like, what is God doing? You know, and so I'm just, is it again? I don't know, you know, but so Chris, how did I don't know, how did it affect your ministry, or how did you have to answer questions when it came to your young people?
Kobe died actually the Sunday morning after our winter retreat.
Wow.
And so we had an amazing weekend. So many great things happened on our retreat. And then as we get back to church, we find out Kobe Bryant's gone, and all these kids who were so excited about the weekend before, they're like, whew, you know. And so that's kind of how 2020 has felt a little bit. It's just like, you know, as soon as you catch your breath, something else hits you. It's like another storm.
Man.
But like you said, man, it's still a year of vision, and one of the greatest attacks on vision is focus, like getting your focus off. And I think that's the reason why when the disciple was walking on the water, he started to sink, because he got his eyesight off of Jesus and started to look at the storm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been trying to tell my students. It's like, okay, listen, things are happening. You're going to feel them. Be okay. Be transparent. Be real about what you feel, but keep your eyes on Jesus.
That's it. That's a good comment, because a lot of us sometimes are afraid to really feel. And what do I mean? Because sometimes society, or even how we grew up, we were told to feel certain ways. But if you feel a certain way, you shouldn't deny it. Yeah. You suppress it. You have to feel it, because if you don't feel it, it's going to show back up in one way or another. Yeah. But the one way to feel, it's okay to vent. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to go through. You know what I mean? And so I never know what Vanessa went through, and losing son, losing daughter, and Kobe at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the other families losing somebody. I'm gonna be honest with you. It felt like, again, in 2020, the world stopped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Alex, can you explain on your?
Yeah, so for me, I got into basketball when Kobe got into the NBA. So for me, Kobe, I mean, that was my guy. I mean, Kobe, you can ask my wife. I mean, Kobe I think, is the GOAT. I'm going to leave it there. But for me, man, Kobe.
Don't bring it
man,
here.
it's
Don't
just-
bring it here.
I loved everything about Kobe. I mean,
Right.
I followed him all throughout his career. I even got to see him play when he was in Detroit. His last year, I was speaking at a conference up there, and they took to see me. And I would say when I was actually asleep when I got the news. My phone was blowing up, and I probably had 25 to 30 people reach out to me because of how much I love.
How much you love Kobe, yeah.
And man, I'll be transparent. I grown man cried.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was.
You all right to feel
mess.
the way you want to feel.
But that next week, I went to one of my youth house, and we had to kind of hang out, and we had a dinner type thing. And there was a bunch of guys sitting around, and Kobe popped up on Sports Center. And I felt like it was a moment for me to minister in that moment, using what had happened. And they're like, I can't believe it, I can't believe it. And I said, Kobe's getting all this press now, and it's great. He was a great player. But what if everybody would have told him how great he was when he was still alive?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was able to minister in that moment and say, hey, why don't we start giving people flowers while they're alive
That's
rather
it.
than when they're dead?
That's it.
So for me, it was a teaching moment, and rest in peace, Kobe, but it was a teaching moment to say, hey, let's really be empathetic. Let's show people how much we care and love them while they're still here.
Yeah, and again, it's been lesson after lesson in 2020. Like you said, year of vision, and so as we move forward in our conversation, one of the things that also is one of the impactful moments right now in our nation has been, number one, the impeachment of Donald Trump, and how he won, and was, didn't get impeached when it went to Congress, and then also now we're in the middle of presidential election, and we have now Joe Biden, who will be, I believe he just won, if I'm not mistaken, he is just now the incumbent seat for Democratic election. And so that's one of the things that we also want to kind of talk about a little bit. And I know sometimes church and state is a little different, and we don't want to talk about politics, but one of the things that we noticed, because after this conversation, we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of what we're dealing with now. Yeah, as the screen shows here, Joe Biden and Donald Trump right now. And, one of the biggest things is for young people, I always want them to understand politics in the frame that it is. But I also want them to understand that God still remains on the throne.
Yeah.
So, but how do you, in ministry, those who are in politics or on state levels or who are in business, how do you not let your personal feelings of how you may feel, how do you not allow that to dive into your ministry or your business? Or, because at the end of the day, your personal feelings can't change somebody else's feelings of how they feel, right? And we've seen some things that have been said through Twitter. We've seen some stuff that even we can't believe that's been said. But how do you? I want to start with you, Tiffany. How do you? Because I know you're the commissioner of revenue, and I it's probably a hot subject right now. So because I know one of the biggest things is voting. And so, can you help us with that?
So my first thing to that would be that my personal feelings are not separated from my business or how
Sounds
I run
good.
my office. There's a certain level to where I put my personal feelings into it, but I personally care about all my employees. I personally care that everyone get out and vote, whether you're voting the same way I do or not.
Right.
I think it's important that you exercise that right. So everything I do, is emotionally involved to a certain extent.
Right. Okay.
I do encourage everybody to get out and vote. And
Yes.
not only is it the presidential election, but also Congress.
Congress election.
So I
yeah.
want people to know that and to do your research and exercise your right.
Great.
Well, one of my personal prayers is that love would be my dominant characteristic.
Okay, that's good.
And I pray against division. And when you look at the 5th chapter of Galatians, you see a list of some very terrible sin. Orgies, witchcraft, debauchery, murder in this list. And none of us in the Christian community would say, well, if an orgy, an hour a week, an hour a month, that's not that bad. None of us would say one murder every 6 months, that's okay. We can be okay with that.
Right.
None of us say a little bit of witchcraft is not going to hurt you. No, we're against these things in that list, but what we don't realize and what we don't talk about from the pulpit is in that list is divisions or factions. Well, God has put that in the same list as orgies and witchcraft. We're all going to holler against orgies or witchcraft. We're going to holler against murder and debauchery. But we're not talking about the division. And what's happened in politics on either side is division. If a Democrat does something horrible, the Democrats come to their defense.
Yeah.
If a Republican does something horrible, the Republicans come to their defense.
Yeah.
And so we don't hold people accountable because we agree with them on enough that we let their sin go by, and then we emphasize and make up sin of the other people that we don't agree with. And we're even in the church, even in the Christian community, we're creating division when we should be bringing healing, and love should be dominant over our disagreements.
Wow. So, with that being said, that's why I feel like Trump, who is our president, many people call him 45, but he is our president, and he's majorly in the limelight. And so when you say it might be okay to drink Lysol, during this pandemic, and then you have people who actually follow it, but you also have leaders in your community, pastors, politicians, commissioner of revenues, Senate. You have leaders who I feel like need to step up and step out. Why do we wait so late when it hits the fan to say something when we ought to know we should be saying something all the time? And I think, as you were saying, division should never happen, but we hardly talk about division because the enemy does come in to tear up relationships. It's an actual aim for him because remember, one could put 1,000 in the fight, but if you put two together, you know what I'm saying? He knows that. So why do we wait so long, Trevor? Why do we wait so long?
I would say for me, one of the things is education, like being educated on what is happening around you. I think sometimes, even go back to the emotions thing a little bit, we avoid a lot. Like we don't like it, we don't have the answer. So we avoid it altogether and just hope it passes. Like, I hope that we'll wait till December once the election's over, right? Then we can start speaking to the different things. I think there's a real reality to addressing what's happening in front of us that we sometimes shy away from because we don't have the answer. But that's the great thing about the church. We have the answer. It's Jesus.
Come on.
And I think he invites us to be parts of solutions.
Yeah.
He gave me that language, like, he's the answer always. Like, we always said, like, in our youth groups, Jesus is always the answer, right? You can never go wrong by saying Jesus is the answer.
Right.
But he invites us to be parts of solutions.
Yeah.
And those are on a one-on-one basis, having a conversation with somebody.
Right.
It could be educating yourself. There are a lot of ways you can be part of a solution to this divide that we see in all kinds of different areas of this country, of the church, and in the body of Christ. But I think God has really invited us to look at it. To address it, to walk into it, not on our own strength, not on our own understanding, but in Him.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what He's really called us to in this season.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, I really want to go ahead and move forward to what's really taking place right now in America. Actually, let's be honest, all over the world. Racism. Black Lives Matter. We've seen in the last couple of weeks Ahmaud Arbery running and being chased down. A guy recording who we originally thought was trying to make sure he was being safe, but he was recording to be caught. And then he gets shot down by, I guess, a former cop or what have you, two white fellows who took the law in their own hands. And then George Floyd, who we saw on live TV or camera, if you may, with a cop, a policeman, white at this point, knee in his neck, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, saying I can't breathe. And then you have cops who are holding him down, two or three cops holding him down, another cop watching. And the other story says that an EMT said I need to check his vitals, and they told him no. And then you have people who are recording who really can't be involved because they don't know if they're going to get killed or shot or what have you. And so I have, this is what I want to talk about tonight, because it's riots, peaceful protests, looting, 50 protests all over our state, all over our nations. There's been protests. And I want to say this is probably the biggest civil rights movement we've probably seen in our lifetime, but period. And so there's been protests after protests, peaceful protests for weeks long. And so here we are. And so I have a special guest that's going to join us. And so her name is Dakota Paradise. And she was one of the movie stars of the movie that came out called The Photograph. If you remember The Photograph was actually the last movie that came out right before COVID hit and AMC and all that had to shut down. And so she plays the young girl, the main character. She's the young girl in the beginning of the movie. Issa Rae is the star. She plays the young girl. And so she's been avid in the community. She's from West Orange, New Jersey. That's where they are from. She's been an avid protester. She's went out and protested. But she wants to join us today. So we want to roll the clip of the movie that she was a part of, and then we're going to pull her on in. Can you roll that clip for us, guys? So I'm guessing this is her, and this is Dakota. Look how cute she is. So we're going to welcome Dakota on our show. Hi, Dakota. How you doing?
Hey.
You good? Good. You are here with our friends today from all over the 757. They are excited that you came to join us today. We're excited that you are joining us today. Again, I am Youth Pastor Eric Battle here at New Beech Grove. All my friends are going to introduce themselves one more time. Go ahead. You want to introduce yourself, Chris?
Hey, Dakota, I am Chris Cox, and I'm a youth pastor here in Hampton.
Hey, Dakota, I'm Trevor. I'm also a youth pastor here in Hampton.
Hey, Dakota, I'm Alvin, and I'm the student pastor in Richmond.
Hi, Dakota. My name is Scotty. I'm a youth pastor in Newport News.
Hey, Dakota. I am the Generations pastor. My name is Alex Bridger, and I'm the Generations pastor in Hampton.
Hi, Dakota. I am Greg Garrett, a business guy in the area and work with orphans and incarcerated kids.
Hi, Dakota. I'm Tiffany Boyle. I'm the youth chair for the Newport News NAACP.
So, Dakota, good to see you. I'm glad you're joining us. And so what I wanted to ask you today was how has the Black Lives Matters movement impacted you? What is your feelings about what's going on in America today?
I feel like just because our skin color is not the same as other people, I feel like that we're not being treated fairly just because our skin color.
So how does that make you someone who is black and someone who is a brown child? How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel happy.
It makes you feel sad or so I'm gonna ask you again. So how does that make you feel, not being treated equally with other races and other colors? Does that make you feel sad? Does that make you feel like it's not fair?
It makes me feel that it's not fair to me.
Good. So I heard that you were out protesting. How did that go?
Very great. It was very fun. I had a lot of fun with it.
You did? Did you have a
Mhm.
did you take a sign out there? Did you do anything? What did you do
Yeah.
something? What did your sign say?
It says Black Lives Matter.
Yes, Black Lives Matter. Dakota, thank you. Give your mom my love for allowing you. You have it? Look like you're reaching for something. Let me see what you got. Let me see. Come on, put it on the screen. Come on, flip it up. Turn it the other way. Yes, Black Lives does matter. Listen, we thank you for joining in, and just to hear from young people on how Black Lives does matter makes our hearts smile. And Mom, thank you for allowing her to be a part of it. Dakota, can you tell everybody how we can keep in touch with you?
Yeah.
Your Instagram, do you have an
Yeah.
Instagram page?
Yes, my Instagram page is Little Miss Cody, and just in case you guys think it's little, it's LIL.
Come on, little Miss Cody. Thank you so much. And we're going to make sure that gets up on the screen. You're more than welcome to hang around. So we're going to actually talk about it. And thank you for allowing us to lead into this dialogue. So can y'all give Dakota a hand for joining us today? And so like she just said, Black Lives Matter is so important. And for her to even say, for us to be treated unfairly, right? And so, again, for young people, I've gotten, again, text messages of, what's really going on, and videos are surfacing of just theories and, of what may be happening. But what happened with George Floyd hadn't just happened for the first time. And so here we are, like-minded individuals wanting to talk about how racism still exists even in 2020. And for me, a follower of Jesus, who wants earth to look like the kingdom, it's hard for me to even see what goes on out here in America, to see our own kind, black kind, being sacrificed because people feel like they can. So, with that being said, let's talk. Chris, I want to start with you. How did this affect not only you, but how does this, as a picture here, how did this really impact you and then ministry going forward?
Once again, it was something that just the shock of it initially, it, in a sense, drained me.
Right.
Because whenever something happens, and especially if you're on social media, you just read through so many different commentaries and so many things that's happening, and you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And then my heart for young people who are watching a person die on camera, and for just humanity, people who are literally watching someone die, my heart just starts to go out for them, because I haven't really even been able to watch the entire clip. Like, I just can't watch someone die. You know what I'm saying? And I still feel what people are feeling, but it's just, I thank God for the brave people who do capture these things, because I feel like they may have been going on, but now people are filming it, and so it's necessary. But I've been trying to just balance these emotions and feelings and my heart for the people that I'm leading, for the students that I'm leading, and different things like that. And it's been draining.
Yeah.
It's been draining, to be honest. It's been draining. And so I've been filling back up by just praying, trusting God.
Yeah.
One of the things that really brought me a lot of joy out of this situation, because I was looking to see, because I do believe Scripture says all things work together for the good of them that love God,
right,
and are called according to purpose. So I knew that God was going to find a way to pull some good out of this. And I was watching the funeral service today, and I'm watching tens of thousands of people get the Black African American church
experience. Yes, sir.
experience. I'm like, y'all get to see what I've been in my whole life. Why I love this church.
Yes, sir.
And it was just that.
It
You
was
know, it was
amazing.
no filter
It was
on
amazing.
it. They really got to see the expression and just see. It was a beautiful thing to see CNN, Fox, some of these other news channels just shut down their programming
Yeah.
and broadcast
Right.
this experience. And the one thing, and I keep saying it, but I just believe it. The banner over the whole service was Jesus. In every song,
Yeah.
they kept calling his name, and I still believe that every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord. And at the end of this,
Yeah.
those of us who carry that banner, we got to continue to push and to continue to carry it, and bring Jesus to this nation. So,
Scotty?
I'll be very blunt and transparent. So this past Sunday, my church, Refuge Nation, we had a prayer rally in the street.
Right.
Chestnut, 36th Street,
Yeah, we
downtown.
saw it.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm
it was
saying?
live. It was good.
And it was amazing. And we actually invited, all churches, but we had a, white church come
Yeah.
and participate. They brought a bus
Right.
of people. And, me being in leadership, running around, trying to make sure, everything was good and we were set to go live, I could even see the division in that setting. Even though we were all there, we were all believers, it's such a touchy subject. And it was hard. You could see, the white people trying to approach us and to just speak and say hello.
Yeah.
But it was hard for us to even welcome them in our space, And
Wow.
and for me, I walked into church and I had to go pray. I was like, this is not, what I'm taught. This is the perfect example for my kids that are here, the youth that are here. They brought their youth,
Yeah.
babies and children
Yeah.
to see this, to experience this. And I had to ask for forgiveness in that moment. And I went and I spoke to somebody, and it ended up being the pastor of the church. So I think that these are the beginnings of, 400 years of us not being able to actually see equally, or know what equality is in that magnitude. So I feel that, this is the beginning of a long process.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For whites to actually, to me, I don't know why all of a sudden this is like, wow, this is actually an issue. I don't get that part yet.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to look past that part, that you at least are trying to have these conversations.
Yeah.
You may see me and, I may look like a, urban black girl, you know what I'm saying? But, in a different setting, I am a professional. So it's like, trying to figure out how they look at me.
Yeah.
How are you perceiving me right now in this moment where I'm the way that I am versus if I have a white coat on and I'm, counseling you on your medications.
Right.
So it's a lot of thoughts, and Miss Boyd, she says something that really was good for me. How to have it's okay to have your personal thoughts and your personal opinions,
Yeah.
and add that. And so I'm going to actually put that into practice because I've been trying to separate it.
Right.
I've been really
Right.
trying to separate the two, but I think it's a beginning. I
Yeah.
think this is going to be a movement, and I feel like it's going to have to go from generations to generations. This is the new 60s, basically, and we're going to
Right.
have to continue to revisit to break 400 years of a curse that we didn't want to break.
Right. And that makes sense because, Will Smith says it, and I don't know if you saw his quote, and he said, racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed, right? And so from our parents having to grow up, grandparents having to grow up, the Emmett Till situation, and grandparents coming home and fighting for the country and still being seen as trash, and then growing up during the Rodney King era and him getting beat up and manhandled in front of, and that was being filmed, and then all the other stuff, Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd now, and just all of this taking place. And so I want to come to, there is such thing that we've been hearing, that heard as a quote, white privilege. And so with white privilege, I can't really talk about it because couldn't be there. And so I'm glad you guys joined. That's what I want to talk about. How does that, because I know some of you have black boys and girls in your ministry. How do you talk to them about what you've experienced? Because the conversation needs to be had. The conversation needs, you need to have this conversation to move forward. Because like Scotty said, there's going to be some uncomfortable moments. Yeah. There's going to be some tension moments. Yeah. Because now the question is like, do you really like me? Yeah. I'm just being honest. Yeah. Because all of this is what we're seeing is like Dakota said, it's not fair because of my color. So let's talk about it. Can Trevor, can you lead us?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is definitely, I think, speaking to your point, Scotty, like it just felt different this time. Mm-hmm. And just talking to different people is like, no, this one hit different. And I think part of that is we're raising up a generation of activists. Like we're raising up a generation who are saying, no, this isn't okay. Yeah. And to be honest, where the church has seen this for years, but we haven't positioned ourselves to be a voice in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just as segregated as we were in the 60s. Like we really are. Yeah. And you know, people are looking for hope, looking for love and joy, which we know we have, but we haven't positioned ourselves into this conversation based off of privilege, based off of just under the covers biases that we bring to the table. And I think it's a huge thing for us. I'm a part of, my fiance is black. And so having that journey, be a part of it, it's really helped me to, so I'm like, you think about Ephesians 4, right, the APEST, and just different giftings. I'm a shepherd teacher. And so my first thing was I need to educate myself, right? And so becoming aware of what white privilege means, right? Understanding it's not something to hate yourself about. It's to say, no, I need to leverage this. And I need to know where I'm operating and be self-aware and utilize it. And to give people voices and to look at people. And it's not like, for me, a huge part of this has been staying off social media. Like, because there are so many, things informing us through social media.
Especially that Twitter. Stay off of that.
And it's crazy. But if we look to the Word of God, it tells us what we need to look for. We see it in Revelation. We're all around the throne of God, many nations, many tribes, many tongues. Yeah. And that's our goal. And now we're at this journey of saying, all right, we got to start putting work in. Yeah. It's not natural. Yeah. It's not our default. If it was our default, we'd already be there. Yeah. And so it's going to take work. I think a first part of that is repentance.
Come on.
Come on. It really is. Come on. And it's not repenting to have guilt. That's not what God's about. It's repentance to be more like Him. That's good. It's metanoia. It's changing. It's turning away from old ways and turning to Him. And I think that's where we start. I think we have to really understand, be self-aware, and say, "Wow, God, I need Your vision. Yeah. I need Your heart. Yeah. And allow You to speak." And once again, we can't avoid this, right? Like the church can't avoid this. I think it's actually a great opportunity for the church to lead this. Absolutely. Yeah. We have to be on the front lines of this. I was a part of the Hampton Roads Collective in Norfolk, the march on Saturday, and just seeing thousands of people in the streets of downtown Norfolk, and it's like, all right, we're here.
But many were white too.
Exactly. Yeah. It was incredible, the expression of the kingdom. Yeah. And it's going to take real effort and real intentionality. Going back to that word, for the church to position themselves the way God has positioned. It's like God's positioned to do it, but it's the church. And I think that's the journey we're on.
Alex?
Yeah. I'll start off and say this. It hit me on a personal level, and I will say this. I'm not to the degree that I want to be, but I'm learning. And for me, I serve at a church where my lead pastor and spiritual dad is African American, and his wife is Hispanic. And their sons are like my nephews. And I had to put a face to justice. Wow. And I had to really internalize and saying, okay, this is not just someone else. This could be my nephews. Yeah. Because I think when we put a face to it, then it calls us to action more. Yeah. So my pastor and me, he's been my spiritual dad since 2012. We've had this conversation since I've been in college. And slowly but surely over time, having resources, and even last year we flew out to Dallas to sit under Dr. John Perkins and just different things with multi-ethnic things. Over time, okay, we need to start having more conversations. So for me, it's getting to a place as a minister, as an uncle, as a husband, as a youth pastor, where if I'm going to preach Jesus, I'm going to preach the entirety of Jesus.
That's it.
I'm not just going to preach an atonement Jesus. I'm going to preach a transformation Jesus.
Yeah.
And we cannot preach Jesus and leave that part out.
That's
We
real
can't.
good.
I mean, even in Matthew 23, when he's talking to the Pharisees, he's saying, you're doing all these godly things, but the things that you've left out is justice.
Wow.
So how can we stand up there and preach Jesus when Jesus himself was diverse?
That's good.
I've actually made more white people mad in the last week than I probably have in my life. Okay, and when we talk about things in the white community, like white privilege that you mentioned a few minutes ago, it really gets people upset. And I really believe, for the most part, we as a race of Caucasians, we're upset because we really don't understand the perspective of what it means. I'm trying to communicate that. I'm taking stands that I've believed a long time, more publicly. I had one post when I agreed with taking the statue of my blood cousin, who is Robert E. Lee,
Wow.
down.
Wow.
And I posted to say, take that statue down. That is the right thing. That I support the governor's decision to do that. 200, and as of last night when I went to sleep, 220 angry faces on one post of that, one post on Facebook. And that's the beginning of the process, because you see, I remember when Joe Drury, who is still alive today, turned around, was taking me to the yacht club program when I was going sailing, and I used the N-word in his back seat, and white man Joe Drury looked at the 12-year-old Greg Garrett, and he stopped his car, and he leaned back in the back seat, and he put his finger in my face, and he said, "I don't ever want to hear that word again." I was shocked. I was upset. What's this man addressing me like that for? Well, I was upset the first time. I would never use that word.
Right.
I haven't used that word in years.
Right.
But at that moment, I was offended that he told me not to use that word, because that was the word I grew up with. And so when I see what's going on, and it's just in my own journey of white privilege. Well, I was arrested at least 6 times that I can remember. It was probably more than that. At least 6 times between 11 and 19. I was in court for 5 counts of grand larceny when I was 15. My last arrest was at 19 for assault on a police officer. I never had breakfast in jail. The judge, when I was 15, lived in my neighborhood. Was a member of the German club, a dance cotillion club with my mom and dad, him and his wife. Okay, wonderful man. But again, I never had breakfast in jail. I went to jail, never had breakfast in jail, because I would get out, and I would go keep on doing my stupid stuff that I was doing.
Wow.
But 11 to 19, including assault on a police officer. Now, if you go and check my record right now, guess what you're going to find? Clean slate.
Yeah, I might say nothing.
Guess what? In my 20s, I had a assistant Commonwealth attorney who is deceased now. He had my record expunged.
Wow.
So I'm a prominent businessman in the community, whatever I am. I don't know what I am, but people think something, right? and I am whatever I am. But what would have happened if this 11-year-old to 19-year-old young man, same guy growing up in the same town, was black? Would I have gone to prison? Would I have been convicted instead of gotten off of the grand larceny charges? What would have happened? You see, white privilege is not what we've been given. Nobody gave me my business. I inherited a outboard motor and a shotgun. The outboard motor never worked, and the shotgun was stolen. Right? So nobody gave me, but what I didn't get, and gave me the opportunity to do what I have done. And the assumption that I'm innocent, the assumption that I'm good, the assumption that I'm honest does come with my white skin.
Wow.
And that's what people don't understand.
Wow. That's crazy. And so, because I was sitting there thinking, and I was just like, I know if that was me, I'd do some begging to try to get that thing expunged from my record. But to take this even a little further, I watching some shows and watching white evangelical pastors talk, and one of the things they talk about, and this is for everybody, and we want to dialogue. Has America Americanized the Bible? And what does that mean? Because the thought process is, if we're talking about the Bible, we just can't talk about it for a certain color. The Bible's for everybody, but when preaching it, are we preaching it with intentionality that it's for everybody, or are we preaching it with intentionality for the ones that we're preaching to? If
Right.
that makes sense. Go ahead.
Right. And I agree with what you're saying, and I think that it's all about context. And again, it's hard to speak from a place where you haven't been. For example, when you think of the cross, and a white person can see a cross as the symbol of God and the symbol of peace. But in the 60s, when a black person saw the cross, they saw it on fire in their yard. So it's hard to see something the same way as somebody else from a different ethnic group or race when you haven't experienced it the same way. We haven't always experienced God as a good father the way some white churches have.
Wow.
We've experienced God as somebody who put us through the wilderness and put us through frustration.
Preach.
So it's so much easier for somebody who hasn't been through pain to say, oh yeah, he's a good father, while some of us are just saying, God delivered me. It's very hard to speak from a place where you haven't been.
Chris?
And that's why it's so important to build relationships with people who don't look like you, with people who don't have the same context as you, because I think that what Jesus was showing us through his life was the power of relationship.
Yeah.
And we were all meant to walk with each other. We were all meant to understand, to slow down, and to not rush people to our own agendas or rush people to our own ways of thinking, but to stop and to slow down and to listen, to hear, and to understand. And even as Jesus was making disciples, even as Christians, as we're supposed to be evangelistic in our approach to sharing the gospel and different things like that, even sometimes the way we do that, it's like sometimes we carry our own agendas before the agenda of God, as if God needs us to be him. He does not need us to be him. He just needs us to be a representation of his love. And I tell people all the time, when Jesus was picking his disciples and he was calling those who he wanted, one of the instances he used the backdrop of him making disciples or getting followers on a fishing trip, and he told them, hey, I want to make you fishers of men. And I tell people all the time, like, if you want someone to change, or if you want something inside of someone to change, when you go fishing, you don't take a fish out of its environment and just stab it to death and say die, 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 and think that it's just going to still be properly used for that purpose, even though now it's damaged because you just stabbed it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you want to kill a fish, all you have to do is rob it of its atmosphere, and it will suffocate. And there are some people, we need to learn how to lean in closer to those who are racist.
Oh.
And create an atmosphere where their racism can't breathe.
That's
Wow.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lean in closer to people who are filled with hate. Lean in closer to people who don't understand. And instead of trying to change them in the moment with a tweet or a post, befriend them and walk with them. Sit at their dinner table.
Love on them. Yeah.
And right now we have so many people. And you know, I watch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram how, you know, passionately we share certain statuses as if someone who is a full-blooded racist is going to look at your status and say, oh, I might need to change my ways because your post just did it for me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
But we just have to slow down and just really walk with people and be quiet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you don't know what to say, don't say nothing at all.
And that's
Speak in before you speak out.
But that's true. But that is true because there has been a lot of people, especially in this season, saying stuff, and it's come back to bite them. And now you're apologizing because your freedom of speech has now has turned against you. And so what that does is now is exposing how you truly really feel. And so it's been I mean, prominent folks that we know have been saying stuff. And although it probably came off as him saying it or he or she saying it in a way they didn't think, but it turned people off. And so go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what you were saying, because relationship is going to be so key in this. You know, I was reading a book, Woke Church, by Dr. Eric Mason, and he mentions the example of Paul and Philemon in the Bible. And Philemon, in that, he would have been a church leader, but he owned a slave.
Yeah.
But Paul had a relationship with him to write him a letter and say, hey, your name means affectionate one. So I want you to reconcile with Osimius coming back. I want you to reconcile with him, and not just reconcile with him. I want you to raise him as a spiritual son, and I want you to make him as an equal. So what Paul was doing in that moment, because of leveraging his relationship, right?
Yeah.
He not only got to be a kingdom witness to all of Philemon's friends who may have owned slaves and all these different things, but also Osimius' friends as well. So because of relationship, and Paul leveraged that, now the kingdom agenda has now just doubled.
Yeah.
Because of that relationship.
So as we get ready to wrap up, I think the biggest thing I want to talk about is how do we move forward? How do we move forward? What does it look like for the last 6 months of the year? God has gotten us through, and He's been faithful to all of us, not just one person, not just one color, not just one culture. God has been faithful to all of us, and so how do we move forward? I'm gonna start with you, Tim. How do we move forward?
Thank you for starting. So my thing is that just hearing all of you speak, my background is a little different because my family is super mixed. So me coming to Virginia and actually running in 2017 for Commission Revenue is the first time I actually realized Newport News was super segregated, and there were predominantly white churches, predominantly black churches, because I didn't grow up that way, and I lived overseas, so I've been around 50 million different cultures. So I look at everybody and I just appreciate what they bring to the table. So if we could all just try to understand what someone else is coming from, not just because of their skin color, I appreciate the different stereotypes about different cultures. I think they're funny sometimes. I appreciate the different foods. So if we could just appreciate each other and look past skin color and look past, learn from history, not dwell on history. And I love what you said as far as repentance, because I think what America is missing is the fact that we have not recognized what we've done. And we have to recognize, which hurts. And you're going to get offended, and you're going to feel sad, and you're going to feel all these emotions, but we have to do that in order for us to move forward. And I think that's what other countries who had horrible pasts have done and are working towards, and America has to do that same thing.
How do we move forward?
The word that comes to me is humility. In every situation, even from Kobe to COVID to, the Black Lives Matter movement. For me, I was not a Kobe fan, and he was too arrogant. Right. I hated how he acted on the court. It was just too much for me. Like Lakers, I hate everything purple and gold. Right. But afterwards, whenever I heard Shaq, talk about stories, I understood then why he was so aggressive as a player, why he was sometimes so selfish as a player. But it wasn't that he was being selfish. He was doing what he had to do to lead his team. And so, it was a humility moment, even being a leader with COVID, why some people choose, to serve. Some people say, I have to sit back. I want to stay at home. I have a family to care for. I don't want to get them involved. It's just humility all over. Even with Black Lives Matter, us as blacks, us as whites, we have to sit down. We have to be, have humility to understand what we're being presented and what's being presented to us.
Trevor, how do we move forward?
I think for me, just listen. I think that's listen to other people. It's also really listen to the Lord. I think a lot of our programs were stopped. Our program was cut when COVID happened, when different things happened. Our programs were stopped, and it really gave us a chance to stop and to listen and to pause and wait for the Lord's lead. God, what are you doing? I think we can't go back to normal, right? There is no normal now. Yeah. We can't avoid just what happened the last 6 months. There's going to be a new normal, and we have to be willing. We have to get uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy, but we go in with confidence because we've heard from the Lord. I think that's really how we have to move forward, is being confident in what God has said and saying, yep, we're going for that. That's where I feel.
So I want to say real quick, because the time is at hand. Thank you guys for joining me tonight in this segment. That's crazy. And I want to do is go around so everybody can go around and say who you are, and again, let people know how they can follow you, how they can keep in contact with you going forward. So we're gonna start with Chris. We're gonna go around, and then I'm gonna close out.
Thank you so much for having this, for hosting this. This was an amazing conversation. I hope that people in different homes and environments continue to have this conversation. Once again, my name is Chris Cox. I'm the youth pastor at C3 Hampton. You can find me on social media at Chris Cox Speaks. That's with a Z. And also, I started a group throughout the pandemic called The Collective. We've been started for a while, but we've been a little more active since then. So The Collective Youth Pastors and Leaders on Facebook, you can connect with us there. And we're just coming together, sharing resources and sharing things that we're learning and we're figuring out together in youth ministry throughout the pandemic.
Once again, my name is Trevor Fisher. I'm the apprenticing student pastor at Freedom Life Church. I'm not really too active on social media, but you can follow our student page at FLC_students. We're active with the collective and different youth pastors in the area, so definitely follow that page.
My name is Alvin Hamilton. I'm the student pastor at the Life Church RVA. And I just want to say that I'm really appreciative of this moment. I don't know if the camera saw the whole room, but I think this is how heaven looks. I don't think heaven looks like a black section, a white section. I think heaven looks like all of us sitting here together. And I think God's will for us is to reflect heaven on earth. So I definitely just want to appreciate you for bringing us all together. And you can follow me at Alvin J. Hamilton.
My name is Scotty Johnson. I'm the youth pastor-elect at Refuge Nation Church in Newport News, Virginia. And I can be contacted or followed at my social media, Instagram, I guess, since I'm back on social media now. It's ScoMojo. That's SCOMOJO.
Okay. My name is Alex Bridger, Generations Pastor at Emmaus Church. You can find me at alexander.bridger on any social media platform, or you can go to our website at buildingabridge.org.
I'm Greg Garrett with Garrett Realty Partners. I'd like to answer that last question you said quickly about what do we do moving forward. What comes natural for us is to love the people that look like us and to confront the people that we disagree with or that don't look like us. We got to reverse that.
Yeah.
We got to confront the ones that look like us, and we've got to love the ones that don't. And that's going to make a difference if we can turn that around, and that'll begin those discussions like we've been talking about. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram.
My name is Tiffany Boyle. I'm the Commissioner of Revenue. You can follow me on all the social media platforms at Vote Boyle, Boyle, and for the Newport News NAACP Youth, that is at NNNYC757.
Thank you again, guys. I am youth pastor here at New Beech Grove Baptist Church. Thank you again to our pastor, Willard Maxwell, Jr., who is an awesome man of God in our community as well. This has been That's Crazy. Thank you again for the conversation today of the year 2020. And I would like to say to those who are looking on Isaiah 33 all the way through 40, one of the common themes was that God, at the end of the day, saved us all. And how did he save us all? He saved us all by his strong arm. There's a strong arm that reached out, not just from where Virginia is, but it can reach all the way to California. It can reach from California to Texas. It can reach from Texas to Italy. So there's a strong arm, and that arm is his strength. And how he saves us is, the prayer is that the world needs salvation. And so salvation will save us from what is going on currently, and what we need in this town, what we need in this city, what we need in this state, what we need in the nation is revival. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later. Thank you. Appreciate it, y'all. Appreciate it. Turn off your mics. Thank y'all for coming up.